So those of you that have been watching the channel for any length of time will probably remember what happened the last time I put a pair of LeBron Witnesses on. And yeah, this gal still hurts every time the weather changes. But it has been a whole year, and now that the LeBron Witness 8 is out, let's see if there are any updates or upgrades worth talking about. Let's get into them. And yes, I'm aware it's more of a reflection of my own skills versus the shoes as to why I broke my ankle in these. However, you know, people that are buying these aren't all in the NBA, they're not all NCAA players or advanced players, so there is a lot worth talking about in certain lines of shoes versus others, which make them more stable or not stable or better for a sprainer or not, and that begins with these ones, especially in the uppers. And the first thing you'll notice new about the uppers is that Nike has ditched the plastic wings in the rear foot for more of a textile overlay, which is pretty interesting. Now, you look, you've got this textile caging that goes all the way around the ankle collar, into the midfoot, little break point, and then again in the forefoot. Now underneath of that is kind of like a quasi gusseted tongue. It's almost a one piece, but that cage overlaps that tongue. So you get a pretty significant and wide tongue that envelops your rear foot in these. It just lacks that plastic caging in the rear foot that the older models had. And what I like and dislike about the lace line, just for different people, is that number one, the laces go through this overlay, this like synthetic leather overlay, and then it goes into the body of the tongue. So it really is lacing more intimately around your foot, as well as giving you more of like a double wrap around your foot. It just depends. If you've got a bunion or Taylor's bunion, that lacing system is gonna start to annoy you. And when looking at the breathing capabilities of the Witness 8, you gotta look at the tongue. It is actually really nice. It's a beaded tongue with all this bunting in it, actually very comfortable, but also very maximalist. You know, on the breathability test, they heated up 101.7 degrees, and that's from a starting temperature of 83 degrees. These are actually a little bit warmer when I started with that. So that's even kind of more of a heat up than standard, because usually it starts, you know, usually these clock in about 70 degrees when I start. One of the limitations of that test. But then if you look at the airflow map on them with the fog machine, really not a lot of fog got out of there, and that's kind of where I saw it even on outdoor courts. At even moderately hot temperatures, they were starting to trap a lot of moisture. So, you know, with these still dumping out, and it's been a minute or two since I actually did this test. I will say, even though, you know, for other ways they're good on outdoor courts in terms of breathing, I probably would bring a spare pair of socks in these if you're going to be using them for any bit of an extended period of time outdoors. And on the upper durability test, 10 seconds highest grit sandpaper, I mean, this withstood the burr better than I thought it would. I mean, yeah, on the microscope, like we saw before, those strands are a little more substantial than some others, and the burr does, you know, rough it up a little bit. Yeah, the burr does give it a little more of an Einstein look, but you know, I'd say to sliding and dragging, they're gonna be more durable than you think they're gonna be. They're just gonna look a little bit weird. And getting into the midsole teardown, this is where some material changes have actually come to the Witness line. Number one, the Air Max unit is rear foot only. It doesn't extend anywhere into the shoe. Number two, you actually get a shank in these ones, and a actually pretty decently stiff shank at that. It's not super long, but remember, you have Air Max in the rear foot, and then, you know, pretty stiff phylon throughout the rest of the shoe, so that is a nice little addition. The one thing I did notice, though, is on the Witness lines, and I actually went back, looked at the others, they actually have a little bit of a distal forefoot rocker on them, which makes transition step very easy, and a lot of times you see shoes with that have really stiff midsole foam or just a stiffer setup, because it just allows it to roll from one step to the next when you're on the balls of your foot a little bit easier. It does make the shoe a little bit more unstable as it is. And speaking of that stability, you'll notice here the flange on the Witness 8, it is more of just a cutout of the midsole. So if you look at the shape of the midsole, if you just went from the rear foot to the forefoot, it is just pretty straight and streamlined. It looks like there's more of a flange on this, but that's just because there's a little bit of a divot in there. So it's better than nothing, but it still isn't anything substantial. But if you look at the bounce height test on the Witness 8, got 42 centimeters in the heel on the Air Max unit, and then 40 centimeters in the forefoot. So pretty tightly tuned shoe, you know, pretty bouncy of a shoe. It also has implications for shock absorption, which, you know, we'll talk about in the fit section, but still a decent budget model shoe if you're looking for bounce. But getting into what is for sure my favorite part of the Witness 8 is its outsole tread. I really like this pattern. It's basically squiggled line patterns in the forefoot as well as in the midfoot, and in the heel, you get this really like kind of gentle wave pattern, but all these waves are serrated. So on an indoor court, whether it be really well maintained or maybe a little bit dusty, these serrations are gonna grab into that. Just a little more of an aggressive pattern. And then you get this little like checkering here in the midfoot, right, where you'd be pivoting a lot. I noticed on outdoor courts, I mean, yeah, the traction's good. It's not super grippy on like slippery outdoor courts. On blacktop, it's fine. And on indoor courts though, takes about, I'd say about 10-20 minutes of rubber warming, and then I would say the traction is okay. I wish the serrations were also in the forefoot, because I think you would get a little bit, a little bit more grip on that, but also I know it would wear down a little bit faster. Now, if you look at the outsole durability test on these 10 seconds highest grit sandpaper, almost a millimeter of damage, but I'd say for a budget shoe, a durometer as high as this is pretty good durability if you're looking for a longer lasting outsole for a budget price. The other thing I love about the outsole, and I guess it's the midsole too, is the shape of the rear foot. It's almost squared off, so a little bit more stability there in that rear foot for crash landings or when you're taking that really big plant step. So I did like that a lot, in that, the shape of the rear foot is giving it more stability versus putting any like plastic or anything there on the uppers. Now, if you look at the speed ratio of these, another pleasant surprise, 2.84 on the speed ratio, which, if you look at the Witness line, they're always a little bit more of a streamlined shoe. They're always a shoe that looks like it's going to get north to south, or coast to coast on the court a little bit easier. And like I said, with how good of a bounce height these have, they do feel pretty lively underfoot, pretty springy. It's just that it is the forgiveness that, does that match up? Now, the fit of the Witness 8 really follows along with the midsole. It does fit pretty streamlined, narrow and medium foot, and just go true to size. A 2E, I would be going up that 1/2 size. A 4E, I think, is probably just a mismatch for this, where you can try to go up one full size. In terms of the snake bitten foot, these are a little bit more unforgiving. In the rear foot, the Air Max unit is nice. So, I mean, if you like Air Max, you're gonna like these. But anyone with ball of foot pain, tendinitis, there's just not a lot of shock absorption into these things. Now, they are pretty swift on court. They are very, very streamlined. So if you're looking for something with plush comfort from LeBron, then get the LeBron 20 or 21s or next gens. But of course, the biggest elephant in the room on the Witness 8 is their side-to-side stability. Kind of alluded to this with the containment on the URS, but it's really kind of like the Witness 7 and Witness 6. There's just not really a flange on there. Plus, like I said, the shape of the midsole is so streamlined. There's just not much in the forefoot in the way of stability or really anything that's going to blunt any side-to-side force on the shoe. So I think if you're somebody with really great footwork, or maybe a little more flat-footed and just really doesn't put a lot of pressure on the outside of your foot, then I think you can get away with it. And I think that's where this shoe is more like dealer's choice. It's going to fit some people really well, and some people with that narrow flat foot are really going to love it, whereas I think others are just going to find it a little bit too unstable. So it's kind of more of the same as the 6 and the 7, but if you like that, then that's a really good thing. And so piggybacking off of the fit of the Witness 8, the playability kind of follows suit. These still, to me, just don't instill a lot of confidence when really trying to pivot side to side hard in these, or to launch off of one foot. Now, I know in the rear foot, like I said, when you're coming down, you're like starting that launch, the rear foot is really stable. It's the forefoot that's not, right? So crash landings, I think, are a lot more stable in these and a little bit more forgiving, especially versus the forefoot. I really didn't feel confident doing anything really explosive, and I say that in quotations because explosive for me is not explosive for other people, but for me, I didn't really feel like going out of my comfort zone in these again. When I was just kind of wiggling them, on one foot, I could tell as soon as you put a lot of weight on the lateral side, they will still roll. Now, if you are someone, like I said, a little bit more flat-footed, kind of a little more duck-footed, I should say, put a lot more weight toward the center line of your body, and I think they'll be fine. I just feel like if you're someone that wants a lot of confidence from your shoe, a lot of confidence, especially throwing your weight around, I don't necessarily think that these are going to be the best thing for you. In terms of going coast to coast, or a shoe that gets up and down the court really easily, these are still one of the better ones out there. They transition step very nicely. They're very streamlined shoes. And, for the weight to bounce ratio of them, like I said, they are pretty good. It's just, I'd say the shock absorption in them, it's not there. I would say these are definitely meant for someone that has more, I'd say, kind of standard footwork, a standard game, someone that doesn't get super flashy on court. I think can get away with these. Like I said, someone that does play more center line to their body. I'd say you know who you are, those people that kind of play a little more almost everted right on their feet. So I think it's an upgrade definitely from the 6s and 7s, for sure an upgrade. To me, it is still not a shoe for someone that wants stability, someone that wants a lot of containment side to side, but I think they're getting there, and the line is definitely getting better. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on these, especially because I have heard a lot of people that kind of echo my sentiments on them, and people that have thought the opposite, have, you know, thought these were the best things they've ever put on their feet. So I'd love to hear your comments down below. And that's the great thing, you know, about these shoes and all the different shoes that come out throughout a year, is that, you know, just different strokes for different folks. People are going to like things, people aren't going to like them. So I'd love to hear, you know, your thoughts down below. Obviously, my opinion isn't the end all be all. And if you want to see the big brother to the LeBron Witness 8, the LeBron 21 go under the knife, make sure you click into this video up above and subscribe down below. Respect, rubber, and foam. I'll see you somewhere in the Sneakerverse.